What is up, everyone? Today at my Pedal Builder Reacts video is the original Aqua Puss AP-1. And not only do I have the pedal here, I have a bunch of reading material that would have came along with the original Aqua Puss. So, Jeorge Tripps, super cool innovator in a way, but also a cloner. So we're going to dive into a little bit of the circuit inside. I'm going to take it apart and unbox it. So basically, this is kind of like going back in time. Here's some literature. Here's original paperwork that would have came along with the pedal. So here's some information about, Aqua Puss and other things. And here's some, thanks for buying it. And then here's some more reading material and marketing material for other pedals that were available back in 1997, 1998. And here's another one. So, cool. Awesome paperwork. It does not fit inside the box, so I don't actually know. I think this might have been inside of like another box, potentially, or just handed to the person who bought this. But anyway, again, this is an original 1997, the first version, not the AP-2, which was made in like late 97, 98 model. There are two different circuits, and I'll have a video eventually talking about the differences in those circuits. So pretty cool backstory on this one is I reached out to a bunch of folks online when I was like super interested, I still am, in finding all things original about this Aqua Puss and the original. I would love to get an AP-2 one day so I can do a direct comparison, but for reference I just was able, there's enough information available on the internet to clone the AP-2, and that's exactly what I did to get the impressions of the AP-2. They're both MN3005 delays, which just refers to like the chip inside. So if you see here, this is actually a clone that I did, and I'm super proud of it. I took this circuit, retraced it, and then made this clone. I don't offer this PCB to the public because I want to sort of take about a year to do it myself and do my own run, because financially this was a investment, and I sort of want to recoup that investment. So I'm going to make a few clones and rehouse them in the AP-2, or not, sorry, AP-2, but in the Mark II enclosures. And you can see here I have the same foot switch, the same pots, and the same LED. So that's sort of what I'm going to be offering sort of for the next year or so before I make that circuit board and PCB available. But anyway, you're going to notice a few things different here versus the Mk2, and that is the blend and then the delay are actually reversed. Kind of interesting. And even the knobs. So see here, this is how you increase the blend, and then the delay, this is how you increase the delay. And then the feedback is quote reversed as well. So not the delay, but the feedback, and then the blend is sort of reversed from what you might be used to in the AP-2. So let me get a shorter distance here. You're going to notice that the jack foot switch is very easy to compress. I'm going to guess that Jeorge Tripps chose that one because it's easy to press, and it's a Japanese brand. So once I open this up, we'll be able to see inside and such. So my serial number is 85. And what I've noticed from gut shots, and I have like literally hundreds of gut shots of all of the ones that are available online for the Aqua Puss. There are differences in component selection. In this particular clone I did is a 1-for-1 component type. So when you see like ceramic discs, you're going to see ceramic discs inside the original, and all those other things. But anyway, talking about the Pedal Builder Reacts bit of things, I talked a little bit about the foot switch. It feels good. The one thing I did notice, and there is complaints online if you read through the forums about the original foot switch, is that they break. They can break. Anything can break. And I've noticed that if I put a little bit of an angle on the switch when I press it, it does have like a lot more resistance, or sometimes it can get hung up. And again, like, look at the condition of this thing. It's not used and abused at all. I would say it's pretty mint. And that foot switch works pretty well. So I don't have the latching. It sort of like gets hung up on things. One distinguishing feature of this versus like the Mk2, you're going to notice that the battery compartment is riveted in here. So there's an internal battery. It says assume that you can take it apart to get at it. The pots feel pretty nice, very even sweep. A lot of torque to move these. I can't recall because I don't have one in front of me, but this is pretty reminiscent of what you get with the Mk2 or the reissue that was I think 2007, 2008-ish. The back came with these little feet, which is kind of neat. Let me see if I can. I just cleaned up this place and I can't seem to find my screwdriver. There it is. Let's take a look inside. Actually, what I'm going to do, because I don't want to scar the knobs, which can happen because that's like kind of a flat surface. These are Davies molded knobs. I'm going to put that down. Oh, one last thing. The jacks themselves, let's see how they feel. I like how they're flush mount. See it like kind of flush at the top. There's not too many threads sticking out. But that's a really tight fit. That feels really good. Really good. And this power jack feels really good too. It's a switch power jack. I don't know what brand right now. So that means basically if you have a battery in there, the battery is going to power it. And if you plug in a power supply, it's going to unswitch the battery from being in the circuit. And then it's going to be powered by the power supply. So as you guessed, I did open this up a lot before. Just taking a look inside. The case feels a lot like the Mk2 case. And if you want to compare finishes, they're pretty dang close. This blue anodized can get, different in every single batch. So I don't expect it to be a perfect match, but it's pretty close. And why you choose blue, like anodized aluminum, is because the oxygen actually will oxidize, funny enough, the aluminum. So people anodize these enclosures to basically create a neutral barrier between oxygen, the atmosphere, and the metal. So because this is original, you can see in here that the Aqua Puss has repair, and from what I understand, people have actually taken their 1997 and 1998 Aqua Pusses and had them repaired for, I think, free of charge. I don't know, can't quote me on that. But you can see this is a later 1997 serial number. I believe that they only made the AP-1s up to about serial number 100, maybe 101. So the fact that this is a later serial number of 85 is kind of cool, that it's maybe more or less what they ended up circling in on with the circuit. So here, lo and behold, is the insides of the pedal, and you can see some interesting things kind of right off the bat. There is a clock frequency that is in the audio spectrum, and it's this guy over, actually no, sorry, it's over here. So coax on the input really reduces that noise potential and bleed in. So you're going to see this wire kind of coming across, staying away from this part of the circuit, because that is where the clock is, and it's around 6.2 kilohertz. And I had two of these on my bench of the original AP-2s, or AP-1s, sorry, and they both measured around 6.2 kilohertz. So that's a sort of a tone secret that I'm giving away with this video, is if you're making a clone or any sort of thing about Aqua Puss, 6.2 on the max delay kilohertz is where you're at. The original MN3005 chip, nothing seems to be altered about that. Some of these are wiped out, so, like these chips over here. Basically what we have is a compander, and then we have basically transistors, 4 transistors on a chip. So one of the here's a little history lesson, is that it's not too much of a secret anymore that this is a Boss DM2 style clone. It just removes the buffer side of the circuit, the switching side of the circuit. And in order to, I don't know if it was intentional, but to hide the fact that that this was not a clone, the circuit was altered and maybe made a little bit more original to use. Instead of 4 independent transistors, they are on a single chip. So basically, this chip has 4 separate transistors, whereas the later AP-2, you're going to see the MPSA 18s kind of scattered around. And if you read through the forums, Jeorge himself said that this circuit was kind of noisy, and that's part of like that dark tone is basically dialed down into the circuitry and the traces that are going to and from that transistor chip, or quad transistors on a chip. It's hard to see what exact model number that is, but if you do some online searching, you're going to see that some folks think it's an MPQ 3904, and I've used that in my clone, and it seems to sound pretty good. It's pretty close. And when I scoped this pedal out compared to that, basically my clone, they lay right on top of each other. So I'm fairly confident that the internet rumor is a reality. Another thing you're going to notice is that this is basically a single-sided PCB, meaning the circuit traces and everything are on the bottom. And it's kind of hard to zoom in here, but everything is on the bottom. And then you're also going to see a little sneaky capacitor in there. So there's basically a lot going on. That capacitor, shoot, I forgot what it is. It's basically this one over here. I call it C9, but I believe it's part of the input capacitor. What else can I talk? So a single-sided PCB. These power supply caps, nothing too crazy. They look pretty standard for the day. Metal film resistors. So I found this kind of interesting. The metal film resistors are not too common. They were definitely a premium back in the day, maybe a couple pennies more. The rumor is that, just my observation is that this circuit was a little too dark, so the AP-2, the later version in 1998, turned over, and there was more carbon film resistors, and maybe that was to brighten up the pedal a little bit, because I believe in various interviews that I've watched with Jeorge Tripps talking about the Aqua Puss, is that it was meant to be more of a brighter delay, not a dark delay. And this particular model, which by the way, this is the one that's currently on John Mayer's board for the Sob Rock tour, is the AP-1. And the way that I've kind of determined that is from the gut shot, or the pedal board shots. You see the blend and the feedback facing this way. So it's sort of a dead giveaway that this is the version that John is using on the Sob Rock tour. And throughout many years, I haven't seen Brad Paisley, who's the other famous guitar player, use this exact pedal, but I believe he used more of the AP-2. All right, diving back more into this circuit board, these are kind of cool. These are, I believe, Panasonic caps, these blue caps. Hard to find nowadays, but they're basically multi-layered polyester, if I see here. Yeah, the CMC, I believe, is the brand. Let's do some more pretty gut shots with my new camera. Looking around, these jacks are real switchcraft jacks. You're going to see that this one on the output is stereo, and that actually they're both stereo. And the reason for that is for switching. Basically, when you plug in, it creates a ground which establishes the battery so it won't drain. because when you unplug it and there's no power cord plugged in, well, the power cord plugged in would break the circuit, so the battery isn't plugged in at all. But if you keep the, if you switch in the jack, basically what you're doing is you're creating a connection between the ground and the battery ground, and then which starts draining the battery. So that's one trick that folks use, is using a stereo jack to break or basically connect the battery. And here's the battery unit here. I think it's a Philips brand, if I recall correctly. Philips brand. Here is the, it's no secret, this is the switch. I read from George himself, if you order you can still get this switch, this foot switch, if you order a ton of them and have them custom made, but otherwise you're gonna have a hard time. I found an alternate, and I'm not gonna give that away just yet, but I will eventually, because I'm a nice guy. But as you can see, they're virtually identical, and this one's brand new. So the switch, brand new, feels the same. Kind of cool. The pots on this, so this is interesting, and they're kind of harder to find, but you can find them on Mauser, is that these are 24 millimeter, I believe, Alpha brand pots. And the unique thing about them is that the PCB lugs, you can see here, kind of shoot through the top of the circuit board. By the way, this is very sort of interesting, but you see how the leads are bent. If you look down here, you can see the leads are bent. It's almost like, and I can see why George and company redesigned this circuit board after, because there's a lot of tension on these pots, and the circuit board feels like they pushed it, moved it around after they soldered these pots in to try to get everything to fit. So, and you can see that the result is these bent leads. Sort of makes me uncomfortable. And you can see how close this jack is to the actual circuit board, and you can see that down here that this resistor, interestingly, this 22 ohm resistor, and oh, by the way, he did print what the actual value is. You see here 100N, or I think that's 100N. I'm looking through my camera, but this 22, that means 22 ohm. And if you look down here, you can see that resistor is sitting underneath. And this is kind of interesting. You see this, basically it's like Tolex that he glued and put on the back of this pot to prevent the pot from shortening out any of the circuit here. But what the result is, the sandwich creates this really high sort of thing going on, and then really close to the jack. So when I plug in, you're going to notice that I definitely would have hit that 22 ohm resistor, and also, you know, the way that it's just a hair from touching that circuit board. So I can see why he wanted to do a revision. My guess is that he bought 100 of these circuit boards, and then just sort of wanted to populate them. Maybe 120, because he ended up with like 100. I think serial number 101 is the last one of this model. What else can I tell you in here? So yeah, so metal film, MN3005, which means that this chip is an MN101. Trying to think what else to talk about. This compander could either be, I'm gonna guess it's an NE570, but it also could be a 571. The original DM2 had the 570, I believe. It could have used a 571 as well, but the 570s are harder to find, especially in this package. This op amp is kind of a mystery, but I believe it's also an LM. It's kind of like the original, the LM353, or LF353. At least that's what I'm using on my clone, and that's what I sort of figured out here. Sounds really close. Interestingly, and I'm not going to be able to demo this right now because this is just a one-shot, but when I first turn on, and this, various owners repeat this, and I actually, the other Aqua Puss that I had in my possession to reverse engineer, thank you, Tom. Quick shout out. when you engage the pedal, it would actually create this little oscillation noise, like whoo, and then it would turn on to quiet. What I've discovered is that the calibration of over here has changed to try to mitigate that, but I believe that there's other repercussions to that. I left all the calibration exactly as it was. This pedal is exactly like the other pedal that I use, so I'm basically, by getting a sample, that this is the better, if there is a better. The later ones is sort of where they settled, versus like the earlier models, which didn't oscillate like that, but it was had other issues, such as clock noise would bleed in, is one of the complaints from the earlier serial numbers in this. So I don't have that clock noise issue, so I leave it. Basically, I'm not going to touch anything to try to replicate that, because I want this to be original. What else can I talk about? I think that's really it, guys. You see some tantalum capacitors here, probably for space, or yeah, I don't really have a DM2 in front of me to confirm that there was used tantalum capacitors in these positions, but they're 220 nanofarad. Anytime you see these tantalums, they're 220 nanofarad. So they're not really needing to be a high value, but that's what they're there. Yeah, I don't know who K is, but I'm guessing it's the person who built it and their quality control. And that's all I have, folks, for you today. Is a pedal builder reacts of a original Aqua Puss AP-1 from 1997. Please subscribe and hit that alarm bell. I think that's what you say at the end of videos.